of our interview, you can just cut it
That's
out.
fine. You know what? I always tell people, I sit here and we'll talk for 15 minutes, and then I'll use 8 seconds of it because that's just how radio works. But
That's right.
so you are running for U.S. Senate, and usually the first question I ask somebody is, when they're running for something like that is, are you crazy, or what makes you want to? That's a big job.
Well, it is a big job, and it's something that I didn't feel like I just wanted to do, but I felt like I needed to do it. I recognize that the greatest threat to our liberty and our economic prosperity is coming from Washington, and I want to stop that threat. It's affecting our kids' future. It's affecting our jobs, the economy, and we need some big-time changes in D.C.
And you've got, right now I'd say you're probably the third, runner in the race. People say, dark horse. Polling numbers haven't been great, but polls are polls. Who knows? What's your goal at this point? I mean, we're less than 4 weeks out. Is it to hope to force a runoff? Where are you at?
Certainly, I believe there's not going to be a winner. There's going to be a runoff, and I hope to be in the runoff. And, I run a grassroots campaign, and it's much different not having a couple $1 million in the bank account like the other two do. And they can run ads all day long, but for me, I have to work the grassroots. I'm in all corners of the state every single day, shaking hands and introducing myself and telling my story over and over and over. And my message to the voters, the primary voters in this state, is about restoring and protecting our liberty because it's affecting the economy today. It's being stripped right out from under us. So a grassroots campaign is difficult, but it's very rewarding.
And if you pull it off, it'd be an upset.
It will be a huge upset, and then maybe I'll get a little press about it.
Has that been a problem? I mean, getting the media to even cover your campaign?
Yeah, Russell, it's what the media likes is $1 million campaign budgets, and because the more you spend, the more attention that you get. But TW, for example, a lot of his money is coming in from what the press calls dark money, shadow companies, corporations funneling hundreds of thousands of dollars into his campaign, and he'll tell you, well, I don't know anything about it. Well, but I've not heard him say anything about please stop it. I think the voters in this state ought to be concerned about where the money is coming from. I have every single one of my voters listed, every single one of my donors listed. You can go to the FEC. You can't do that with T.W. Shannon or even James Langford. You don't know where their money's coming from because it is secret money. They don't have to list it, and that should be concerning to voters, that millions of dollars are flowing into this state to fund two separate campaigns. For what purpose?
That's the rhetorical question is,
Yep.
Where's the money coming from and what is their agenda?
That's right, and I assure you that someone like Shannon that's taken millions of dollars, or at least hundreds of thousands of dollars, I don't know what his next filing is going to be, but his last filing was several hundred thousands of dollars coming in from special interest groups and big corporations. He's going to owe somebody some favors, and it's not going to be the grassroots. For me, I speak for the grassroots in this campaign, and that's all of my campaigns have been like this, though, so it's nothing new to me. And even in the last poll, the very same pollster that did the last poll had me at, I think, 14% 2 weeks out. We had our own internal polling of 35%, and of course, we got 40%. So
you talk about the gubernatorial campaign?
Talk about the gubernatorial campaign. And so, yes, I don't poll high, and even the pollster himself said on one of the other stations here the other day when he was on that Brogdon supporters don't answer his phone calls. And he said if I can't talk to them, I can't register them. And so we have a lot better numbers, I feel like, than what the polls show. And I think the people are going to be surprised on election night, and I aim to be first or second in this race.
Hang on one second. I'm going to turn that down just a little bit more. It's still too loud.
Sounds kind of newsy, though.
It does. Well, it makes it sound like you're in the newsroom, because you are.
Making news.
He's here in person, live.
So, it's an interesting thing about Mr. Shannon, and there's several interesting things about Mr. Shannon, like, what does he do for a living? Where does his money come from? But you bring up a great point, which is that his backing seems to be from outside Oklahoma, and when I hear from Oklahoma Tea Party folks, especially, they're like, well, there may be a national Tea Party organization behind this guy, but it ain't us.
Yeah.
And I mean, are those the people that you're counting on to get out there and vote on June 24th?
Absolutely. The same people that voted for me last time. I had 95,000 people support me in the gubernatorial race. Those people are still out there, and unfortunately, a lot of them don't even know I'm in the race yet, and they may not until Election Day, simply because I don't have the advertising budget. I wish I did, because my message sells like hotcakes. The message of liberty and restoration of our founding principles, people gravitate to that very quickly, and that's a lot better message than Shannon saying, support me and I'll protect the corporate welfare programs. Those things don't sell well. Or even Representative Langford. I think James is a good guy that's got some bad votes on some very important issues, whether it's the NSA, protecting the spy program by the NSA on American citizens, whether his raising the debt, $4.5 trillion in the last 3 years. Those are not good votes. But Shannon's, he has a history of not only voting wrong, but he also has a history of not telling the truth when he does vote wrong. And in particular, he talks about, he's going to protect the citizens here in Oklahoma against any new bond indebtedness. Yet he authored House Bill 3069 back in 2008 to funnel $25 million to build the Indian Culture Museum. So you can't say one thing and then vote another, but that's what too many politicians do. And I'm concerned about his rhetoric not matching up with his voting record, even in the slightest way.
What do you think will be, what part of your message do you think might be the key to unlock voters and get you into that runoff on the 24th?
My stance on stopping the debt and stopping the abuse and the overreach of the federal government. When I say stop the debt, I don't mean just play around with it and talk about it. I mean stop it. Not one new penny should go to raise the debt. $4.5 trillion in the last 3 years, that's enough. Actually, that's too much. Our kids are going to be hamstrung for many, many years to come because of the bad actions by a lot of bad politicians in Washington, D.C. Also, stop the federal overreach. We heard today that the Supreme Court told the state of Oklahoma again, well, the EPA can come in and regulate the air that we breathe. Our DEQ, our state DEQ's not good enough to take care of our air and water problems here. Yes, they are. And we need even state leaders today to stand and push back against the federal government. And Russell, you saw my voting record over the last decade of my life, and I pushed back on the feds on 2 different occasions and won both of those on constitutional stands. We are not obliged to operate under an unconstitutional edict coming from Washington, D.C., but it takes leadership, bold, courageous leadership, sometimes in-your-face type leadership, to push back on the feds and to stop this government overreach. And until a leader steps up and does that, nothing's going to change. And one of the first things I said that when I announced that I was running for this seat was that I would not support the leadership in the Senate. Mitch McConnell, I would not support him. I'm not going to vote for him. And yet Shannon and Langford both will not make that same statement. They're going to look and see who else is running, and then obviously Mitch McConnell, they're going to vote for him. That's what that political two-step talk is all about. I will not support McConnell because he is the antithesis of everything I believe in. He's against free markets. He loves corporate welfare programs. He's bad for the Republican Party, and I think he's bad for the United States of America as well. So why would I vote for somebody like that again, like previous senators have? I wouldn't. They will.
You know, you have to wonder as a citizen when you look at the Senate, look at Dr. Coburn's career. I mean, here's a man who definitely let it be known how he felt about government spending, about waste, I mean, he's become almost the archetype of the guy who stands up at the Senate and shouts, "There's an elephant in the room."
Yeah.
And yet, here we are. It's worse than it ever was when he took office. So what can one guy do?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we don't need to replace Dr. No with a Mr. Yes. And I think that's what you're going to get with the other two gentlemen. I will be another Dr. No, believe you me. I'll probably have more no votes because anything that's unconstitutional, I will not support. I don't care how much it tickles your ears, how good it sounds. I will not support anything that falls outside of Washington's constitutional authority, specifically Article 1, Section 8. So what can one guy do? You stand up and you shine the light on what's going on. Anytime there is an unconstitutional bill that was just passed by Congress, I will be on the Senate floor and I'll be pointing back to my state legislature and to my governor and demanding excellence from them, demanding protection from this federal overreach, from the bill that they just passed down and that will now affect every citizen in the state of Oklahoma. I'll be demanding that they repeal that bill, that they nullify that bill, that they cut the strings with Washington, they not accept any money to implement that piece of legislation. Until we start pushing back on the federal government and reclaiming what's rightfully ours, and that is the restoration of our liberty, everything else doesn't matter. Our liberty is at risk in this country today, and that affects the economy, it affects jobs, manufacturing. Pick a subject. The more government grows, the more our liberty contracts as a free people.
What is the plan? I mean, every Republican runs on the same thing. We must stop Obamacare. We must stop spending.
Yeah.
But, rarely do I hear, and here's how I'm going to do that. Yeah. Or here's what I'm going to replace Obamacare with. So, what is your plan? I mean, and I know you can't sum it up in 30 seconds, but just kind of give me the bullet points.
Yeah, the big difference between me and the other two candidates, you'll hear repeal Obamacare and replace. I say nonsense. How about allowing the free market to take over? Let the doctor and the patient be in charge of their health care program. It doesn't take the government at any level to dictate what the doctor and the patient does when it comes to health care. So let the marketplace expand. Just get government out of our backyards, off our back, out of our hip pocket, out of our bedrooms. Leave us alone. Let the marketplace take care of pretty much everything. Free enterprise is going to be a cure-all for our healthcare system.
Okay, I have to ask a question on that because there's a third leg on that stool, and that's the insurance industry.
Sure.
And and I'm sure you've run. Every American has run across the cost of healthcare.
Right.
That is not something that most of us can just pony up on our own,
no.
Even if we wanted to.
Yeah.
So, at what point does the government step in and say, okay, well, insurance companies, because that's who's running, that's who's really deciding how much everything's going to cost and how much, because it's based on how much they're willing to pay. So how do you deal with that?
Well, first of all, the reason insurance rates are so high is because of government mandates. If the insurance companies were able to compete in the marketplace, just like we do when you go buy car insurance is relatively inexpensive because there is competition. There's dozens and dozens, just scores of insurance companies that'll sell you car insurance, that will sell you homeowners insurance, that will sell you liability insurance. But there's not very many insurance companies that will sell you health insurance now. Why? Because the federal government seized control of it. So I take the Reagan approach. Government is never the answer. It's the problem, and that's what we're experiencing today. Whether it's health care, whether it's Common Core, we see the feds and the NGOs, the bureaucratic agencies trying to seize control of our local school districts here in the state of Oklahoma. Get government off of our back and out of the way, and let the marketplace answer these questions.
And what about, in the entitlements?
Yeah.
The stuff that we know that Social Security is going to go broke. We know that, Medicare is a
Right.
joke. What do we do with all that?
Yeah. Again, free market principles should be the answer, is the answer. If you and I, Russell, had the money that we put in Social Security over the last 40 plus years of our working life, had we been able to save up and put our own 401k money back, I guarantee you we would both have a lot more money than we'll ever get out of Social Security. Just the idea that we are entitled to anything from government. Let me tell you why we have government. It's clearly defined in the Declaration of Independence. Government is instituted to protect our God-given rights of life, liberty, and property ownership. Everything else should be out of bounds. Keep your hands out of our lives, government. Leave us alone and let us live. Government is here to protect us, but the very government that is supposed to protect us has become a predator upon us, and it has now dictated almost every action that we're involved with, whether it's at work or church. The IRS, the most abusive agency, so blatantly unconstitutional. The IRS should never have they don't have the authority to seize our bank accounts without due process, but they do. And why do they do it? Because we the people have allowed it to happen. We keep sending the status quo politicians back up to Washington, D.C., doing the same thing and expecting a different result. I will be a different kind of a U.S. Senator. I will be the kind of a senator to point out the problems and the flaws of what's going on. I will be the kind of senator that our founding fathers set up. I will represent the state of Oklahoma. I'm not going to be the jet setter. I'm not going to be the one that tries to fix all the other 49 states. I'm going to try and protect the sovereignty of the people that live in the state of Oklahoma. And once I empower my governor, my state legislature, you're going to see this happening around the country. We need to build a liberty movement, and I plan on doing that from this U.S. Senate seat.
Let me throw you a curveball.
Okay.
One of the things that's really getting a lot of press right now, in fact, they just started a petition drive this week, is either decriminalization or legalization of marijuana.
Right.
Some people see it as a states' rights issue.
Sure.
Certainly, a lot of people see it as a libertarian issue. I hear really from some surprising people, some very conservative people, that, the government shouldn't be telling people they can't smoke pot. Mm-hmm. Where do you fall in that?
I fall into the category that is definitely a states' rights issue. The war on drugs has probably cost more lives and more financial crisis in this country than in any other thing other than maybe the wars. The war on drugs does not work. It is a state's issue. And we saw what happens when a state actually does it. Colorado did it. And the federal government said, oh, no, you can't do that. And they said, oh, yes, we can do that. And they chose to do it. Well, guess what? They did it. And the feds backed off. Why? They have no constitutional authority to do anything about it. Now, do I support drug use? Would I do drugs? Of course not. But that is for the state. That is the beauty of this country that we live in. 50 individual sovereign states where we the people make the decision. But what's happened over the years? We have morphed into the United States of America. That's not what this is. It's these states united in purpose of living free and free association. But we have given up on those liberty issues, and now we just let the federal government dictate what we should be doing today. And until we get back to the basics, until we restore those God-given rights of life and liberty and property ownership, nothing is going to get better.
Is the genie out of the bottle? I mean, can we turn the clock back and be 50 sovereign states that unite for defense and trade and nothing else?
Until the leadership in Washington changes, the answer is no. Until we get new blood, people that like myself that actually understand the Declaration of Independence and the tenets that it's about, the rule of law. When we get back to those basics, I'd say, when we see several states, Maryland, California, Even Colorado, there are counties that are trying to break away from their individual states because of the oppressiveness of government. Government should be neutral in our lives. We shouldn't have to get up in the morning and wonder, what is government going to do to me today? I spent 30 plus years in business, and more often than not, when I sat down and made my next year's budget at the end of the year, I had to figure in the cost of government into my business. And I made investment decisions because of crazy, ridiculous government mandates on my company. That should never happen. We should be able to make business decisions based on what's best for my business. I want to be able to take care of my family, and government is making it very difficult for me to do that today.
Do you read Ayn Rand?
Oh yeah, I do. Her books are some of my favorite, but they're you got to go on vacation to read them because they're too thick. You know, a 600-page book. But yes, and you know, here's where I am philosophically. The process is very difficult to get to where we are now to where we need to be. But it is simple to understand where we need to be. Now, it's going to be a long haul to get there. But as simple as it is, it's going to take some people to stand up and be willing to spend political capital and to fight for the issues that are important to us. And for me, you know, this may sound weird, but I don't have a political bone in my body. As a matter of fact, I despise politics. I'm a policy guy. I don't like to hang out with the politicians. I don't like most of them. I am a grassroots guy, and I am a guy that loves my family, and I want to protect my family's future. It's at risk today, like it's never been before. And we continue to elect people that go to Republicans that go to Washington, D.C. and vote 3 times in the last 3 years to raise the debt limit $4.5 trillion. And even Representative Langford, he has all kinds of excuses. Well, I've got 17 trillion reasons why I'll never do it. I'm not going to raise, I will never vote to raise that debt limit, ever, under any circumstance. It's got to stop. And until we get people that understand the necessity to stop destroying our kids' future, nothing's going to change. And so, you know, for me, I have a clear vision of where we need to go, and I have a very clear vision on how to get there. And it's going to take a tussle to make it happen. And I tell people everywhere I go, I'm willing to serve them, and I'm ready to fight. The last 15 years of my life, I have been prepared for this moment, and I'm ready to take this fight right into the belly of the beast. I have been fighting D.C. from outside for the last decade and a half of my life, and I'm ready to go fight right in the belly of it.
All right. You know, I said 15 minutes. I lied. We've gone almost 25, but
Okay.
You're an interesting guy to talk to. You know, I always ask at the end of an interview, is there anything else that you want to put in there or anything that I should have asked you and didn't?
Well, randybrogdon.com, go to my website. I need people's help, support, volunteer, finances. Again, my money comes from the grassroots. It doesn't come from shadow organizations and people from outside the state. So I need people to get actively involved in this campaign. There's 4 weeks to the primary. That's a lifetime in politics, but it's 15 minutes away.
Well put. All right, sir. Thank you.